Thank you all very much. 2003, I started working in the NHS in the northeast of England. I'd trained mostly in Ireland, done a couple of years working in Holland, and then took up a post in the NHS. And shortly after that, it never struck me, but just on one occasion, I just noticed in the outpatient department of my hospital, just a notice with a list of procedures, day case procedures that were available in the hospital I was working in. And right at the bottom was termination of pregnancy. And I almost collapsed. I had never, maybe naively, never realized I was going to be working in a country or in an institution where babies' lives were being taken in this way. And I said to myself at that time, again, very naively, I have to do something about this. And I knew I just couldn't go and knock on a door and say, sorry, you have to stop doing these abortions. So I decided in innovative, creative ways that somehow or other I was going to have to at least challenge the culture. I didn't expect that it would end up speaking at the National Pro-Life Campaign conference here today. As is mentioned in the short video, Amrita is one of the girls that I tried to help and successfully helped on this occasion. Many women do change their mind after they've taken the first abortion pill. The majority of abortions, and I'm sure it's the same in this country as in the UK. In the UK, more than 85% of abortions nowadays are carried out by drug-induced processes, and that involves taking two pills. The first pill, mifepristone, which specifically blocks the natural hormone progesterone, which is essential for maintaining pregnancy, and then the second pill to complete the pregnancy they're meant to take 1 or 2 days later, called misoprostol. Now, if a woman changes her mind, as Amrita did, and many others do, and decides not to go ahead with the abortion, she has a few choices. One, she can just do nothing and wait and see what happens, and that's what, for example, if you go to BPAS or Mary Stopes, first of all, they try to persuade you that, no, you have to complete the abortion in many of the instances, but they can't force that on the mothers involved. But if they decide not to take the second pill, there's about a 20% chance at best that her baby might survive. If she takes both abortion pills as instructed by the abortion providers, there's a less than 2% chance, it's just over 1% chance that her baby might survive. And those very few who do survive, the vast majority are then surgically aborted shortly afterwards. The treatment that we offer is progesterone, because as I mentioned, mifepristone, that first abortion pill, that blocks the action of progesterone. And while it is devastating and lethal on many occasions, if we can give progesterone promptly to the mother who requests it, we can save the babies in more than 50% of cases. And in the United States, the success rate is up to 65, 68%, but there's a greater awareness in the United States. In fact, in several states, it's mandatory that the abortion providers must inform the mother that if she's getting the abortion pills, that they must inform them that if you change your mind, you are entitled to receive this progesterone treatment. So there's a great awareness in the United States, and the average time for a mother who changes her mind after she's taken that first abortion pill, the average time for her to receive progesterone, if she requests it, is less than 6 hours. In the UK, it's 25 hours. In myself and the work that a great colleague of mine, Dr. Eileen Riley, were doing, the average time from taking that first pill to finding help is 25 hours, because it's a service that is certainly not publicised, is strongly opposed, and people are just not aware of it. In almost all the cases, the way that girls like Amrita and others have found us is through internet searches. So they almost always go back to Mary Stopes or BPAS or whatever abortion clinic has given them the pills, and they'll say, I regret what I've done, I've changed my mind, and they're told, sorry, go away, there's nothing you can do. Some are told, oh, go and talk to your GP after the weekend or whatever. Some of them do go to their GPs, and the GPs, by and large, will say, sorry, this has nothing to do with us, you have to go back to Mary Stopes or to BPAS. Then, in desperation, they go on an internet search, and almost all of the women who came to us did so through typing in abortion pill reversal on Google or on the internet. And they, by and large, come up with a helpline, which is American-based in Ohio. And myself and Eileen Riley and there's some doctors in Ireland are registered with that helpline, and then they will try and put the mother in touch with us. And that's how the service operates. So if they can contact us, and if we can get them progesterone quickly, we can save their babies in the UK, and probably the same in Ireland, in 50 to 55% of cases, which is more than double the survival rate that if they didn't get any help. It's not a lot, but it is a start, and I'm sure there are many more mothers who would avail of that service if they knew it was available to them. As was mentioned in the video, and as Wendy mentioned, not everybody was happy with what we were doing, and despite calling themselves pro-choice, by and large, complaints were made against what we were doing. I won't go into all the details, but in my case there was 10 specific allegations made against me that I was prescribing an unlicensed medication remotely, that I wasn't qualified to do this work, that I was coercing or forcing my pro-life views on these vulnerable women. When the GMC, who had initially endorsed all of these allegations, by the way, when they actually got around to investigating it, they found that none of those allegations could be upheld or could be supported. I would just highlight one or two of them. It's ironic that they say that progesterone was unlicensed, and that is true. It's not licensed for that specific indication that we were given. It's not licensed for reversing abortions, but no medicine is licensed for that. However, in medicine, and I'm sure the Doctors for Life would be aware of this, or anyone working in healthcare, many treatments are given that are not specifically licensed for every condition. For example, a medication or drug is designed for a specific indication, and then 1 or 2 or 10, 20 years later, it's discovered, oh, it actually works in something else as well. And it can be used if it's safe to do so, and if there's good evidence behind that. What they didn't mention is that misoprostol, the second drug, so I mentioned mifepristone is the first drug, and the second drug is taken 1 or 2 days later. Misoprostol is not licensed for abortion. It's licensed for management of ulcer disease, but not for abortion. It's what's considered an off-license use. It's very effective in inducing and completing abortions, but it's not licensed for that. But the abortion providers did not like to add that in their complaint to the GMC, although in my response, that was one of the issues that I highlighted. They also didn't mention there's another drug called methotrexate, which some people here might be on. It's used widely in rheumatoid arthritis. And the Royal College of Obstetricians, who also complained against me, they advocate the use of methotrexate very much for the medical management of ectopic pregnancy, because it is very effective in that indication. But it's not licensed for that. It's licensed for management of chronic inflammatory conditions, but not for ectopic pregnancy. There was a certain degree of, you can call it inconsistency or hypocrisy, or whichever you prefer, but in the complaints made against us, they did not like to highlight these factors, although we did in our follow-up. I was supported by a wonderful organisation called Christian Legal Centre, or Christian Concern with their legal team, the Christian Legal Centre. Because I have to admit, when the allegations came against myself and Eileen Riley, that was at the end of April 2021, my initial reaction was, there's nothing we can do, that's the end, we have to stop this, we're probably going to get struck off once the investigation had taken place. Within 48 hours, Christian Concern, having heard about this plight, because I had to inform some of the pro-life organisations that we could no longer be contacted about this, including the website, the helpline. We had to inform them, and Christian Concern got wind of this. And within 48 hours, they organised a meeting between myself, Eileen, and their legal team. And a wonderful lady called Andrea Williams, who's the chief executive of Christian Concern, said, no, this is unjust. We are not going to accept this. We will fight this. Andrea, by the way, has just completed the New York Marathon last weekend. It's her first marathon in 11 years, and I'm sure she did a great time. She probably came in the top 3. But I said, well, okay, if that's what you want. And I went with them. And they were very, very, very supportive, very intelligent, and dealt with the case in an extraordinary manner. My legal team actually referred to the initial hearings as basically a kangaroo court, because what was interesting is that none of the evidence was looked at. We provided all the evidence. Within 3 days, we had an expert witness supporting our side of the story. Within a few weeks, we got excellent supportive statements from many of the women that we had supported. And we could have got 45, 50 statements if we wanted, but we settled for 10 because they were all different stories. Some of the women had had their babies, some were still expecting their babies. Some of them had tried the treatment and it hadn't worked, and I'll come back to that in a moment. And some had even decided not to go ahead with the treatment. So we got 10 different statements, all outlining that they hadn't been pressurised in any way, that the support they got was excellent and so on. And then we presented all this evidence to the GMC, but they just refused to look at it. And subsequent hearings, we were even told at the outset, oh, we're not going to look at any of the evidence, we're just going to look at the allegations. So eventually, after the third hearing, my legal team said that enough is enough. We're going to have to take this a step further. So let's go to a proper court. So they took the case to the High Court in London. Now, again, admittedly, I didn't expect this would be successful. I thought with the backlog of COVID cases, there was going to be years of a delay before the High Court might take on the case. But surprisingly, having made the application in, I think, around mid-October 2021, we were granted a hearing at the end of February, 24th of February 2022. So within a matter of months, they were going to hear the case. And then suddenly, in January, just after Christmas, the GMC suddenly decided to get their act together. They eventually got themselves an expert witness who surprisingly supported almost everything that our expert witness had said, and said that, well, there's not a whole lot wrong with what Dr. Kearney has been doing. And so his statement was surprisingly supportive, and at that point the GMC had no option but to drop the case, because the 6 days before the scheduled High Court hearing, they dropped the case because they had no evidence. They had tried in vain to find any of the women to give a negative statement against me. They hadn't found an expert witness that was prepared to say anything negative against me. And you can't go to court, you can't go to the High Court and with no evidence. So the judge is going to say, okay, can you present your evidence? And if all you've got is, well, we don't have any evidence, Your Honour, but we don't like what that guy is doing, the case really can't proceed any further. So the case was dropped, and the officially revoked. The conditions that had been imposed upon me had been revoked. The main conditions in my case had been that I must not, under pain of death, I must not supply, administer, or promote or advise progesterone for the management of an abortion pill reversal. I was also banned from doing any private work or any voluntary work, but that wasn't so much an issue. So all of those conditions were revoked. But it took 9 months. We had 9 months without any help that we could offer to mothers who were still looking for help. And in that 9-month period, we know that in the UK there was 160 calls made from British women, UK women, to the Heartbeat International Helpline, the international helpline, looking for help. And they had to be all told, I'm very sorry, but that service is not available at the moment to you. We know there were also a number of women from Ireland who had phoned that same helpline and were told that same story, because the doctors courageously providing the service in Ireland understandably decided to be very cautious because of what was happening in the UK. But now that those conditions have been revoked, I'm hopeful that doctors like myself and the doctors in Ireland, Doctors for Life, will be able to start promoting that again. So before we were banned from saving lives, it's not a lot, but, and as I mentioned, about 50-55% success rate, but we're aware that 32 babies were born from the work that myself and Eileen Riley have been doing. It's a drop in the ocean, but there are 32 babies, and more importantly, or possibly just as importantly, the psychological, mental health benefits for the mothers involved, I think, is immeasurable. That's a factor that's often overlooked in this when we focus on the babies. And it's not only the mothers, but the fathers in many of the cases. I never thought of the fathers until one of the pictures up there showed me with Amrita and her baby, but on that occasion there were three couples came with their babies for a photo shoot for the Mail on Sunday. And I'd never thought of the fathers until that very moment when the three happy daddies came along, that they were so grateful that someone had helped their partners or their wives to save these little babies, their children, which they now recognised. So it's not only saving the babies' lives, it's saving the health of the mother, protecting the health of the mother. Never tire of doing what's right. That's the main message I want to try and get across to pro-life groups, Doctors for Life, medical students. A lot of people have asked me or suggested to me that it must have been terribly stressful, what you went through over the last 2 years, the risk of losing your career, losing your house, and so on, your credibility and reputation and so on. And the honest answer is it wasn't. It wasn't all that difficult at all. I think largely because of the amount of support that we received from around the world. I got messages of support from every continent, a lot of prayer, a lot of promises of prayer from people, and also the fact of knowing that what we had done was right. I think was a great consolation, certainly to myself and to Eileen. So while it possibly should have been stressful, and I would mention that a number of doctors have committed suicide when they have been investigated by the General Medical Council. But I never felt that stress, and I can only put it down to the fact of the support that we received from all over the world, and knowing that that support was there, the prayer, but also knowing that what we were doing was right. There's a famous, or there was a famous, for those of you classically minded, a famous politician in Roman times in the 2nd century BC, who every time he gave a speech in the Senate in Rome, every time, no matter what the issue was, he finished up his speech with, "Carthage must be destroyed. Carthago delenda est." You could say aborto delenda est. Abortion must be destroyed. I didn't expect that. That wasn't the point of what I was trying to make. I just thought I'd throw that. His name was Cato, by the way. Cato was in Peter Sellers' films. Cato the Censor. But he finished up with that statement, and every time I give this talk, I always try to finish up with that statement to pro-life people, that never tire of doing what is right, but do it. Do it with courage, do it with honesty, and do it with love. Sean Kearney, one of the founders of 40 Days for Life from Texas, he spoke brilliantly at the London March for Life a few weeks ago. And he pointed out something that I'd never really thought about before, that the whole abortion industry is based on fear, instilling fear into mothers. You can't do this, you can't cope with this, you'll never manage this. Fear of doctors, nurses, healthcare professionals, fear of the public. Oh, if I speak out of that, I'm going to be cancelled, I'm going to be criticised. So it's based on fear and silence, instilling silence. So we have to counteract the abortion industry with honesty, because theirs is built on lies, as well as fear is certainly built on lies. So honesty, courage, and love. Everything we do must be done in love. There's nothing worse, there's nothing more damaging, I think, to the pro-life movement than an angry word, an angry response, an angry reaction to something, which is very understandable and so easy. The temptation is always there when we're dealing with such critical issues of injustice. But everything we must do must be done in love. So never tire what's doing right, but always do it with charity and with love. Thank you very much.
Wow. Thank you so much, Dr. Kearney, a true pro-life hero.